Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we were reading the fifth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 11. I believe we had discussed till text 12. Today we will start from text 13 and 14. Kshetrajna Atma Purusham Purana Sakshat Swayam Jyoti Raja Paresha Narayano Bhagavan Vasudeva Swamaya Swamayayatmani Avadhiyamana Yatha Nilaha Thavara Jangamanam Atma Swarupena Nivishta Ishe Evam Paro Bhagavan Vasudeva Kshetrajnat Medam Anupravishta. There are two kinds of Kshetrajna. The living entity, as explained above, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is explained as follows. He is the all-pervading cause of the creation. He is full in himself and is not dependent on others. He is perceived by hearing and direct perception. He is self-effulgent and does not experience birth, death, old age, or disease. He is the controller of all the demigods, beginning with Lord Brahma. He is called Narayan, and he is the shelter of living entities after the annihilation of this material world. He is full of all opulences, and he is the resting place of everything material. He is therefore known as Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By his own potency, he is present within the hearts of all the living entities, just as the air or the vital force is within the bodies of all the beings, moving and non-moving. In this way, he controls the body. In his partial nature, the Supreme Personality of Godhead enters all the bodies and controls them. Purport. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 15:15. Sarvasya chaham sati sannivishto matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha. Every living being is controlled by the Supreme Living Being Paramatma, who resides within everyone's heart. He is the Purusha, the Purusha avatar, who creates this material world. The first Purusha avatar is the Mahavishnu, and that Mahavishnu is the plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. Krishna's first expansion is Baladev, and his next expansions are Vasudev, Sankarshan, Aniruddha, and Pradyumna. Vasudev is the original cause of Brahmajyoti, and the Brahmajyoti is the expansion of the rays of the body of Vasudeva. Yasya prabha prabhavato jagadanda कोटिश्य शेष वसुधादि विभूति भिन्नम तद्ब्रह्म निष्कलमनन्तमशेष भूतम गोविंदमादि पुरुषम तमहं भजामि. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is endowed with great power. The glowing effulgence of his transcendental form is the impersonal Brahman, which is absolute, complete, and unlimited, and which displays the varieties of countless planets with their different opulences in millions and millions of universes. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is thus described in Bhagavad Gita. This is 9.4. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagat avyaktamurtinah matsthani sarvabhutani nachaham teshavavasthita. By me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. This is the position of the plenary expansions of Krishna as the all-pervading Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. It is a very beautiful description of the Supreme Lord, the actual and factual Kshetrajna, or the independent Kshetrajna, as it is described. The independent Kshetrajna, as it is described here. So the Supreme Lord is not dependent on anyone. All the demigods, as has been described here, all the demigods, all the living entities, the entire material nature is dependent on the Supreme. Everything is resting on the Supreme. So, Srila Prabhupada explains in Purports to Bhagavad Gita that when the soul occupies the body, that is not sufficient for the body to be active and alive. The soul occupying the body is not sufficient criteria for the body to be alive and active. Srila Prabhupada explains the body is alive and active, becomes alive and active only when super soul enters. So because the super soul, that is the Paramatma, is there, therefore every living being appears to be alive and active. Otherwise, just the presence of the soul cannot activate the body. So, so the Lord is orchestrating everything in this world. And that is why it is being explained here that the Lord is controlling everything in this world. So Kunti Devi in her famous prayer, in her second prayer, she is saying, Maya Javanika Chanam अज्ञातधूक्षजम् अव्ययम् लक्ष्यसे मूढाद्रीशा नटो नाट्यधरो यतः. So the Lord is orchestrating everything in this material world. And the Lord is personally driving everything in this material. Only it takes on a garb. Maya is the illusory wheel, and Maya is that wheel. And the Lord is orchestrating everything under this wheel. The Lord is not visible, but everything is ordained by the Lord. Kunti Devi, Mother Kunti Devi is telling, just like uh, an actor sometimes will be acting and he may not be recognizable. Who is he? Like that, the Supreme Lord is not recognizable. The Lord is orchestrating everything in this material. All the affairs are being orchestrated by the Lord personally. So Prabhupada is describing Purusha Avatar means one. No, Purusha Avatar is the avatar responsible for creation. And Prabhupada is describing the first Purusha Avatar, Mahavishnu, then Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. And how they are coming, Prabhupada describes them. From Baladev comes Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. Vasudev is the cause of Brahmajyoti. Vasudev is the cause of Brahmacharya. So everything is resting on the surface. So it is just like now, say if a person is carrying a very big flag or a placard, the placard is visible, person may not be visible. But placard is not existing on its own. The person is carrying it all the time. Or sometimes the placard is so huge, the person at the back, but we cannot see. So that is the case of the material universe. That the Lord is just under the, not just a wheel behind. The Lord is just a wheel behind. And just like a person will be holding something high in his hand, now the whole body is big. The hand may not be so very easily seen. It's like so. In that same way, the Lord is holding everything through His subtle energy or His subtle presence. The Lord is present everywhere. Therefore, the Lord is cognizant of everything. Prabhupada speaks in purport to Bhagavad Gita second chapter also. Lord is cognizant. Our cognizance is only limited to the realm of our body, but the Lord's cognizance is everywhere. That means the Lord can feel the pain and pleasure of every living. So if you try to understand, you just try to understand this point. Our cognizance is spread all over our body. That means we are aware of the pains and pleasures of our body. But the Lord is supremely cognizant, means the Lord's cognizance pervades all the body. That means the Lord is cognizant of the pains and pleasures of everybody. So we have experienced how much our body gives us pain. But the Lord experiences and feels the same pain because He is also cognizant. We are cognizant, Lord is also cognizant. So the Lord is feeling everything what we are feeling and everything what everybody is feeling. The Lord is not aloof from this universe. That is the point. And therefore we can understand that uh, so this is where, because cognizance means feelings are there. You can experience the pain and pleasure. The Lord is also experiencing the pain and pleasure. Mm. So that is why if somebody misuses his body, our Vaishnava etiquette manual says that if somebody is misusing the body, they are actually that is actually offense to the Paramatma. Because the Paramatma can feel it, what we are feeling. Somebody says, no, my body, I can do anything with that body. No, Paramatma can feel whatever we feel because he is cognizant in every body. The Lord's cognizance spans every body. That is the point. So that is how the Lord is personally involved in each one of our lives. So Krishna is not a judge incriminating punishment on every living entity. Krishna is personally feeling what we are feeling. That is how he is with us. And that is why a sadhaka can understand that uh, the Lord can never leave us, neglect us. The Lord is always there with us. So much so that the Lord is tolerating every experience what we experience. Lord is feeling the pains and pleasures what we get because of our karma. Because He is there as the Parama. Understanding this, uh, a devotee who understands this will never be disturbed by anything in this world, by any situation which comes in this world. Because one will understand that although by my activities I have messed up quite a good amount, but still the Lord is giving me the best, which I would not have got without devotion and service. Let's read further. न यावदेतं तनुभृन्नरेन्द्र विधूयमायं वायु वायुनोदयेन विमुक्तसङ्गोचितसत्सपत्नो वेदात्मतत्त्वं प्रमतीह तावत्. Translation: My dear King Rahugun, as long as the conditioned soul accepts the material body and is not freed from the contamination of material enjoyment, and as long as he does not conquer the six enemies and come to the platform of self realization by awakening his spiritual knowledge, he has to wander among different places and different species of life in this material world. But when one's mind is absorbed in the material conception, he thinks that he belongs to a particular nation, family, country, or creed. These are called upadhis, designations, and one has to become freed from them. Sarvopadhi vinirmukta. As long as one is not freed, he has to continue conditioned life in material existence. The human form of life is meant for cleansing away these misconceptions. If this is not done, one has to repeat the cycle of birth and death and thus suffer all material conditions. The jiva, so the point here is that now Maharaj Jadbharat is explaining that the Paramatma is controlling everything. And the Lord Paramatma is feeling, is uh, i- is feeling everything what the living entity goes through. That is why there cannot be any better well-wisher than the Paramatma. We may have friends and relatives, but friends and relatives do not feel what we feel, even if they want to, because we cannot feel what the other person feels, even if we want. I remember I was a small child, there was this terrible disease, and I was so much in pain, and I was crying like anything, not able to tolerate. And the parents have taken me to doctor, and medicine was going on, injections were going on. Still, it was so much pain I was not able to tolerate. And I was pleading to my mother that please do something. I am not able to tolerate this pain. And I remember she had told me that she cannot do anything more than this. She had taken me to doctor. She was giving all the necessary, whatever precautions, food, everything, no, and whatever was needed, she had done that. And she was giving me medicines on time and whatever the medicines required in terms of dietary prohibitions and prescriptions and so on. And I was not able to tolerate. It was so painful. And I was crying and pleading my mother, please do something. She told me, I cannot do anything. You have to bear it up. At that time, I was really thinking that was first time in my life where I understood that, oh, parents cannot help. Who can help? That was first time because that situation really put me to think. And and therefore Bhagavatam explains, Prahlad Maharaj explains that uh, parents cannot help the child. Bhagavatam explains that uh, uh, what is that verse? Balasya neha sharanam pitro narsimha no. Artasya chagadam udanvati manchato no. Tasya tat pratividhir ya ihanjate sa. Is that the one?
Tavat
Yeah,
तनुभृतान्तदुपेक्षितानां
yes. It is only the Supreme Lord. A physician cannot save the person. The person, the patient, the physician, and everyone around. The parents, everybody's in illusion. The physician can. It is the Lord who saves. It is not the physician. The Lord who can save, not the physician. The parents cannot save a drowning child. That's the another. Parents cannot save a drowning child. Balasya neha sharanam pitro narsimha. Parents cannot save the drowning child. So it is a Paramatma. So now, if the Paramatma is the greatest well-wisher, because how great a well-wisher? But Paramatma can really feel. Paramatma can really feel what we feel. That is the point. The Paramatma can really feel what we feel. So that much is the feeling of the Paramatma. So that much the Paramatma knows us. It is said that when we have a desire, the Lord comes to know before we come to know. The Lord comes to know before we come to know. So then knowing this, why not work for the mission of the Paramatma? What else is there to do? Where else one is supposed to go when the Paramatma is so much loving and caring for the living entity, in facilitating everything for the living entity? And that is why in this verse it is being said that it is the most unfortunate illusory delusion situation for the living entity. The living entity thinks he has a better algorithm than what the Lord. And this kind of feeding the false ego takes a living entity to so many species of life, to simply try out so many material variations, which simply cause agony and nothing else. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, "बहु दुख पाए आछि स्वतंत्र जीवने." So that independent life is the invitation to misery. And therefore, but that independent life is driven by the drive of the cause of false ego. Okay, there is a question here. Pains and pleasure are due to sense perception. How can the Lord feel until he explicitly wants to feel? Yeah. We feel the pain and pleasure of the body. So pains and pleasures are reality because the body undergoes the pains and pleasures. Similarly, the mind undergoes the pain and pleasure. And the soul experiences it to the degree the soul identifies with it. The soul identifies with the body and the mind, but the point is that the Lord identifies with the soul. So therefore, the Lord can feel what the Lord will not get disturbed by it or affected by it. Definitely, we get disturbed and affected, but the Lord identifies with us, and therefore the Lord can feel what we identify with body and mind. So we feel what the body and the mind undergoes, and the Lord identifies with us, so the Lord can feel what. But the Lord is not affected. The Lord is saying everything rests upon me, but I am not resting. I am alone also. That is the point. Okay, let's read further. यावदेतन्मन आत्मलिङ्गं संसारतपावपनं जनस्य यच्छोकमोहमयरागलोभ वैरानुबन्धं ममतं विधाते. The soul's designation, the mind, is the cause of all tribulations in the material world. As long as this fact is unknown to the conditioned living being, he has to accept the miserable condition of the material body and wander within the universe in different positions. Because the mind is affected by disease, lamentation, illusion, attachment, greed, and enmity, it creates bondage and a false sense of intimacy within this material world. But the mind is the cause of both material bondage and liberation. The impure mind thinks, I am this body. The pure mind knows that he is not the material body. Therefore, the mind is considered the root of all the material designations. Until the living entity is aloof from the association and contaminations of this material world, The mind will be absorbed in such material things as birth, death, disease, and illusion, attachment, greed, and enmity. In this way, the living entity is conditioned and he suffers some material misery. So the mind is the cause of all the tribulations of this world. the, uh, how does the mind do it? That is a very interesting and exciting phenomenon. Uh, the point is, the body is always on a decay curve. The body is always on a decay. At least we can say our body is always on a decay. None of us are child. So our body is always on a decay curve. Now, uh, so the body is disintegrating. So if the body is disintegrating, you see the irony now. The body is disintegrating. And, uh, the body only grows say till 20 or so. After that, it starts disintegrating. In the 20s, nowadays at 25%, maybe as old as 50 years old. The body disintegrating. Uh, yeah. So some of our KGP UGs cannot even walk that much, which no, say our grandfather can walk. So the body disintegrating. The body disintegrating. How the attachment to the body comes up? Do you see the point? If the body decaying and disintegrating, if something is just getting down and down and down, how can the person remain attached to it? If a business venture is unprofitable and it's going in loss, 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 loss. So how is it possible that we remain attached to it and investing? So that illusion or entanglement is brought about by the mind. So that illusion is brought about by them. So the mind creates, and how the mind functions is by creating duality. So both the figments of duality, or both the figments of duality, are actually illusion. But one figment of duality makes one or keeps one attached so much so that one can tolerate the next figment of duality. So happiness is also illusion and misery is a reality. But the so-called sense of happiness keeps the living entity attached to the misery. So the living entity is bewildered. So the living entity is bewildered because the living entity is bewildered because the living entity is not able to. Uh, so many times the living entity cannot decipher because the polarities are changing so much. So happiness is an illusion, misery is the no, reality. But so so that's why sometimes the acharya say that okay, the misery is actually bundled in a bottle which is written where the name tag happiness is written. That is the only happiness of this world. So happiness is an illusion. Happiness is the very thin film, misery is the reality. But because of this thin film, a person does not understand whether it is happiness or misery. Because he's undergoing misery and he thought, okay, happiness just came, there it is gone. It is here only, it seems. But by the time he can decipher really happiness is gone, the living entity is still thinking probably it will come back again very soon. And that expectation makes him go through the entire phase of misery.
Ultimately, the hook is to happiness, but the living entity never gets. So this is illusionary network of the mind. The sense of happiness, the sense of misery. And that is what makes one attached to the material body, to the material assets, to this material world. So therefore, people are attached to the body. Because although the body disintegrating, then what is the attachment? The mind is proposing, oh, the body disintegrating, but the body is getting a lot of name, fame, glory, accolades, and so on. So one is attached. So this illusory creation is the expertise or the play of the mind. Therefore, the mind is the cause of the bond. The mind is the cause of all the trouble. When the mind takes us illusory high, then it raises our expectation bar so much. And when we face the reality, there is so much intense suffering because the so that expectation was too much raised by the so-called happiness, and therefore the misery is really that's the point which we can try to understand. So mind is the enemy. The mind makes us wonder by making us attached to different things, to different facets, and therefore the living entity keeps on growing one's attachment from one to the next, to the next, to the next, and this cycle never ends. And therefore, life after life, the living entity is called. Let's read further. भ्रातृव्यमेनं तदभद्रवीर्यम् उपेक्षयाध्येहितम् अप्रमत्तः गुरोर्हरेश्चरणो पाशनस्त्रो जहि व्यालिकं स्वयमात्ममोषम्. This uncontrolled mind is the greatest enemy of the living entity. If one neglects it or gives it a chance, it will grow more and more powerful and will become victorious. Although it is not factual, it is very strong. It covers the constitutional position of the soul. O king, please try to conquer this mind with the weapon of service to the lotus feet of the spiritual master and of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Do this with great care. Purpose. There is one easy weapon with which the mind can be conquered neglect. Mind is always telling us to do this or that, and therefore should be very expert in disobeying the mind's orders. Gradually, the mind should be trained to obey the orders of the soul. It is not that one should obey the orders of the mind. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say that to control the mind, one should beat it with shoes many times just after awakening, and again before going to sleep. In this way, one can control the mind. This is the instruction of all the Shastras. If one does not do so, one is doomed to follow the dictations of the mind. Another bona fide process is to abide strictly by the orders of the spiritual master and engage in the Lord's service. Then the mind will be controlled. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has instructed Srila Rupa Goswami, Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagyavanachi Guru Krishna Prasade Paya Bhakti Lata Bija. When one receives the seed of devotional service by the mercy of Guru and Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one's real life begins. If one abides by the orders of the spiritual master, by the grace of Krishna, he is freed from service to the mind. As ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the fifth canto, 11th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Jadabhakti instructs King Prabhupada. Uncontrolled mind is the greatest enemy, as it is said. So, Maharaj Jadabharat is telling that this mind is very dangerous. So, just forget it. Just don't care about it. Maharaj Jadabharat is telling, no, no, no. If you neglect it and don't care about it, that is also a problem. Because they neglect it, don't care about it. The mind is going to grow and grow and grow. And the mind grows. So the mind grows and overthrows. Overthrows all sense of clarity, uh, all sense of positivity, auspiciousness in our life. The mind grows and overthrows action. And that is why we have to be very careful. So Maharaj Jadabhat is saying one cannot just neglect the mind. What to say of combating with the mind? So to fight with the mind also difficult, but to leave the mind also difficult. Both cases, the mind is very deadly to deal with. So it is being explained that only by the weapon of service to the lotus feet of spiritual master and the Lord, one can actually get control over this mind. So the expertise of mind lies in tagging every situation. And a sincere sadhaka should understand that all the tags which I am getting through the channel of the mind, they don't have any much meaning. All these tags. The mind tags somebody as a friend, somebody is an enemy. Prahlad Maharaj saying both are useless. What is the point in tagging somebody as a friend, somebody is an enemy? Nobody is a friend, nobody is an enemy. So who are the people around us? And is nobody is a friend, nobody is an enemy. Everybody is simply a carrier of our own karma, which comes back to us. Nobody is a friend, nobody is an enemy. The mind gives these kind of tags. I want this, I don't want this. This I love, this I hate. So love is also illusory, hate is also illusory. So therefore, the mind gives these tags of duality, both of which are illusory actually. That is why this mind is the greatest enemy. The mind is the greatest enemy. Uncontrollable mind. And the mind has to be controlled. That is the point. So one cannot just. So Prabhupada is saying that, okay, it is all right to start the practice of Krishna consciousness by neglecting the mind. That, okay, don't think about mind too much. But what does that mean? That is an incomplete statement. Don't think of the mind too much. Just engage in devotional service heartily, enthusiastically, uh, with the attitude of applying oneself fully. So when that happens, then actually one is neglecting the mind only for some time. Very soon one will come to the stage of absorption in positive activity. Like that. Absorption in positive activity. One will come to that stage of absorption in positive. So when there is absorption in positive activities, especially activities of Krishna consciousness, the mind starts getting purified. Therefore, the mind starts getting trained and tamed. That is the idea. Trained and tamed. Let's read further. Yeah, so we are read 17, right? So with this, we begin. Conversation between Maharaj Raghugan and Jadabhat. Let's read text one. Raghuganvacha Namo Namaha Karana Vigrahaya Swarupa Tuchi Krita Vigrahaya Namo Avaduta Dvijabandhulinga Niguda Nityanubhava Bhavaya Tubhyam. King Rahugana said, "Oh, most exalted personality, you are not different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By the influence of your true self, all kinds of contradictions in the Shastras has been removed. In the dress of a friend or a Brahmana, you are hiding your transcendental blissful position. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you." So Maharaj Raghuna is saying, "Oh, exalted personality, you are not from the Supreme Personality of God." But from the Brahma Samhita, we understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of all causes. Sarva Karana Karana. Rishabdev was a direct incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes. His son Bharat Maharaj, who was now acting as a Brahmana Jada Bharat, had received his body from the cause of all causes. Therefore, he is described as karma vigrahaya. So Maharaj Raghunatha is addressing, oh Lord, you are non-different. Oh Brahmana, you are non-different than a Supreme Personality of God. Why? Because your mission, the Lord mission. He is telling, what is your influence? Your influence is that the one who is been lost in this illusion will come out. That is your influence. That is your power. So here Maharaj Jadava is telling very beautiful points. He is saying, by your influence, all kinds of contradiction in the Shastras have been. So this is why, you see, an Acharya, a pure devotee of the Lord, by simply by their example, so much Krishna Shakti is oozing out that people's doubts get resolved automatically. That is why we say, Akshudan Diloji, Janme Janme Prabhu. By his power, by his mercy, all the illusions will get washed out. All the contradictions in the Shastras are removed by his influence. So we see in this way that the devotees of the Lord are just like disinfecting agents. So when people are being intoxicated and infected, the devotees can go to them and they get disinfected. Okay, let's read the next verse, verse 2. Jaramayar Jaramayartasya yatha gadam sat nigada dagdhasya yatha himam ऊडे हमाना हे विदस्तदृष्टे ब्राह्मण वचस्ते अमृतम औषधम में. ज्वरमाया रतस्य यथा गतं स निदगा दग्धस्य यथा हिमम् पुडेहमाना हि विद्रस्तदृष्टे ब्राह्मण वचस्ते अमृतम औषधम. O best of the Brahmanas, my body is filled with dirty things, and my vision has been bitten by the snake, serpent of pride. Due to my material conceptions, I am diseased. Your nectarian instructions are the proper medicine for one suffering from such a fever, and they are the cooling waters for one scorched in the heat. Purport: the conditioned soul has a body full of dirty things, bones, blood, urine, stool, and so forth. Nonetheless, the most intelligent men in this material world think that they are combinations of blood, bone, urine, and steel. If this is so, why can't other intelligent men be made from these ingredients? They are so readily available. The entire world is going on under the bodily conception and creating a hellish condition unfit for any gentleman's living. The instructions given to King Rahugun by Jadabhara are very valuable. They are like the medicine that can save one from a snake bite. The Vedic instructions are like nectar and cool water for one suffering from scorching heat. Here Prabhupada explains in purport to Bhagavad Gita second chapter, Prabhupada is saying, you see, the material body is anyway going to be destroyed. No one can prolong it. No one can say it. Material body is going to be destroyed. That's first. Material body is going to be destroyed. So Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna, when everybody's material body is just going to be destroyed, why are you worrying? Because anyways it is going to be destroyed. What to say of their body, your body will also be destroyed. So why are you so much attached and worried? And then the Lord says, okay, if you are able to understand higher than this, you understand that the spirit soul is never destroyed. The spirit soul is eternal. So anything and any work which is done at the level of the soul will remain. But body and mind will get destroyed. That is the point. Body and mind are going to get destroyed. The soul is always going to be remain the same. So therefore, Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna, so any one thing also you accept, then also you don't have any cause for lamentation. But if you accept the body, then you should understand body will be destroyed. Then don't be affected by it. But if somebody says, no, 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 I have not too much overwhelming knowledge, then the Lord says, okay, if you have knowledge, then you understand the spirits. So there is no cause of worry. Because one can serve on the platform of the soul. So this is the point. Both cases, there's nothing to worry. So worry comes only because of attachments. And worry brings in misery. Okay, question. Can Karana Vigrahaya be used for any pure devotee? Or only one directly born from the Lord or the avatar? No, it can be used for any pure devotee. It simply means that one is born naturally on a lotus flower. Karana Vigrahaya. It means also. Okay, let's read further. Just text 3.
तस्मात् भवन्तं मम संशयार्थं तस्मात् भवन्तं मम संशयार्थं रक्ष्यामि पश्येदधुना सुबोधम् रक्ष्यामि पश्येदधुना सुबोधम् आध्यात्मयोगगृहीतं तवोगम् अध्यात्मयोगग्रथितं तवोक्तम् अतया हि कौतूहलचेतसो मे आख्यायि कौतूहलचेतसो मे. Whatever doubts I have about a particular subject matter, I shall ask you about later. For the time being, these mysterious yoga instructions you have given me for self-realization appear very difficult to understand. Please repeat them in a simple way so that I can understand. My mind is very inquisitive and I want to understand this clearly. Yeah. The Vedic literature instructs us. Tasmat Gurun Prapadyeta Jigyasu Shreyottamam. An intelligent man must be very inquisitive to know the transcendental science deeply. Therefore, one must approach a guru, a spiritual master. Although Jadabharat explained everything to Maharaj Ramuguna, it appears that his intelligence was not perfect enough to understand clearly. He therefore requested a further explanation. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Tadvidhi Pranipatena Pariprashnena Sevaya. The student must approach a spiritual master and surrender unto him fully. Pranipatena. He must also question him in order to understand his instructions. Pariprashnena. One should only surrender to the spiritual master, not only surrender, but also offering uh, but also render loving service to him, sevaya, so that the spiritual master will be pleased with the student and explain the transcendental subject matter more clearly. A challenging spirit before the spiritual master should be avoided if one is at all interested in learning the Vedic instructions and yeah, yes, where it says, yeah.
So Arjuna is mentioning that this explanation is very fantastic. Only I could not understand. But difficult to understand. So why difficult to understand? Because see, the default algorithm is attachment and illusion, and now that is the default algorithm. Now in that, the Lord is talking about ascertaining the modus operandi of the mind, and then actually spotting out mind and neglecting or dragging it towards Krishna conscious activity. But to actually ascertain the mind, what to say of manipulating or controlling or directing the mind is a very arduous task. This is what Arjuna is acknowledging immediately. Because Arjuna is saying, oh, this is very Arjuna is saying. Arjuna is saying this is very difficult. This mind is very difficult to handle. So because it is subtle, he is asking a simpler explanation. Actually, the mind is subtle. And therefore, to be fully aware that how the mind cheats us and how the mind creates the sense of illusory attachment to the facets of this world is a difficult subject matter for everyone. So to get clarity, Prabhupada explains in 2.7 that it behooves an intelligent person to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. And then Prabhupada says the next verse, purport, that this bona fide spiritual master, if somebody has got shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, he's supposed to know everything. He's supposed to know everything in due course of time. He's supposed to know everything by the grace of the Lord. So that is why it is being explained. 434 is explaining that with the one should approach with the attitude of service, giving all respect to others. And in the service. Challenging spirit. So the devotees always work in our lives to create clarity. And all we have to do is to be ready to accept. That is the only point. Like you see, Vidurji was giving constant advice to Dhritarashtra. But this unfortunate personality, Dhritarashtra, was not ready to accept. And the moment he got ready to accept it, one evening was the distance span between liberation and entanglement for him. So it took only one evening of open-hearted discussion for Vidurji to say, for Vidurji to explain, for Dhritarashtra to change his heart. So much so he went to the forest overnight and he was performing tapasya. Let's read further. यद आह योगेश्वर दृश्यमानां क्रियाफलं सद व्यवहारमूलम् न हि अंजसा तत्त्वविमर्शनाय भवाननुस्मिन् भ्रमते मनो मे. O master of yogic power, you said that fatigue resulting from moving the body here and there is appreciated by direct perception. But actually, there is no fatigue. It simply exists as a matter of formality. By such inquiries and answers, no one can come to the conclusion of the absolute truth. Because of your presentation of this statement, my mind is a little disturbed. Yeah, so this is quite interesting. So we experience full fatigue, but if there is no actual fatigue, no, Maharaj Raghugan is saying it is disturbing. The Prabhupada is saying formal inquiries and answers about the bodily conception do not constitute knowledge of the absolute truth. Knowledge of the absolute truth is quite different from the formal understanding of bodily pains and pleasures. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna informs Arjuna that the pains and pleasures experienced in relationship with the body are temporary. They come and go. One should not be disturbed by them, but should tolerate them and continue with spiritual realization. See, Prabhupada saying knowledge of the absolute truth is quite different from the formal understanding of bodily pains and pleasures. So here in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna informs Arjuna pains and pleasures experienced in relation to the body are temporary and should not be disturbed by them, should tolerate them, continue with spiritual realization. So that is why the Acharyas explain that material world only offers pain. And the so-called sense of happiness is some time period in between where the relief. Because the pain and pleasure is temporary, it doesn't have much substantiality or value attributed to it. Because as we said, if there is pleasure, as we said, if there is pleasure, then by the time we get to make a container to keep it, it is gone. Because temporary. And there is pain, and by the time the person tries to make some way to combat or handle it, the pain is gone. So both efforts are useless and futile. That is why the Lord is giving the most intelligent proposal: don't be disturbed by it. All the material world offers is temporary, so one should not be much giving value to it. That's the point. And one should aim for that which is lasting, that which is eternal. So that our identity with the Supreme Lord our relationship with the Supreme Lord. Let's read further. Brahmanuvacha Ayam Jano Nama Chalan Prithivyam Yah Parthivaha Partha Eva Kasya Hetu Tasya Bhichankarayo Adi Gulfajangha Janorumadora Shirodharam Saha Amshedhi Darbe Sibhachayasya Sauvira Apadeshaste Yasmin Bhavan Ruddha Nijabhimano Raja Sindhus Iti Durmadanda. After sorry, the self-realized Brahman Jadabharat, he said, among the various material combinations and permutations, there are various forms of earthly transformation. For some reasons, these move on the surface of the earth and are called palanquin carriers. Those material transformations which do not move are called gross material objects like stones. In any case, a metal body is made of earth and stone in the form of feet, ankles, arms, knees, thighs, torso, throat, and head. Upon the shoulders is the wooden palanquin. Within the palanquin is the so-called king of Savir. The body of the king is simply another transformation of earth, but within that body, your lordship is situated. But within that body, your lordship is situated, and falsely thinking all lordship is situated, falsely thinking that you are the king of the state of Savir. Purport. After analyzing the material bodies of the palanquin carrier and the palanquin passenger, Jadabharat concludes the real living force is the living entity. The living entity is the offshoot of offspring of Lord Vishnu. Therefore, within this material world, among the moving and non-moving things, the real principle is Lord Vishnu. Due to his presence, everything is working and there are actions and reactions. One who understands Lord Vishnu as the original cause of everything is to be understood to be perfectly situated in knowledge. Although he was falsely proud of being a king, King Rahuguna was not really situated in knowledge. Therefore, he was rebuking the palanquin carriers, including the self-realized Brahman, Jadabharat. This is the first accusation Jadabharat made against the king, who was daring to talk to that learned Brahmana from a flimsy ground of ignorance, identifying everything with matter. King Rahuguna argued that the living entity is within the body, and that when the body is fatigued, the living entity must therefore be suffering. It is clearly explained in the following words. It is clearly explained the living entity does not suffer due to the body's fatigue. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives an example of a child heavily decorated with ornaments. Although the child's body is very delicate, he does not feel fatigue, nor do the parents think that his ornament should be taken away. The living entity has nothing to do with the bodily pains and pleasures. These are simply mental concoctions. An intelligent man will find the original cause of everything. Material permutations and combinations may be a matter of fact in worldly dealing, but actually the living force, that is the soul, has nothing to do with them. Those who are materially upset take care of the body and manufacture the Daridra Narayan, poor Narayan. However, it is not a fact that the super soul or the soul becomes poor simply because. So it is not a fact that the soul or the super soul becomes poor simply because the body is poor. These are statements of ignorant people. The soul and the super soul are always apart from the bodily pain and pleasure. Okay, so let's stop here for today. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय. So tomorrow 8 p.m. we'll have Bhapi Shastri. Hare Krishna.